Good morning, everybody. You are listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair, and this is the Morning Buzz, where every weekday morning we bring you some
buzz.
news, some talk, the buzz, the goodness, the wonderfulness. I am the bass player for Coldplay, as far as you know, Tara, and I am joined on the board by
The bass player for Coldplay, as far as you know, Philippe.
my co. That was beautiful. My co-conspirator, partner in crime,
We are
guilty parties.
we are here live on the air, of course, 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. We're also live on Facebook. Hello, Facebook people. You can
Hey,
actually see
Facebook,
us.
how you doing?
See my
You can see it.
You can see about 25% of my face, which is how it should be because I'm being safe.
See how Jaslin's hair looks so much better than mine any given time. You could see that. For those of you listening on the radio, you could hear us talk about it. Which, by the way, you can catch us if you're in the Montclair area on 90.3 on the FM radio dial, or anywhere in the world on WMSCRadio.com and the iHeartRadio app, which is cool.
And YouTube later on, because we upload these episodes online for your viewing pleasure.
Yeah, we do. We also put ad breaks every 3 seconds, so we make loads of money. No, I'm just kidding. We don't do that.
Imagine.
We don't do that.
Oh Lord. But we're gonna throw it over to Jaslyn. What do you got today for us in terms of news?
Well, thank you, Philippe, for that lovely introduction. I am also the drummer, as far as you know, for Coldplay. They tried to recruit me, but I was just kind of like, school is just way
it's
up
too
there,
much.
It's
too much.
So good morning, lovely people of Earth and beyond, if you're listening from beyond. My name is Jaslyn, and I'm here with your news update for the morning. First up, our very beloved Montclair State girls swim team just competed in their first meet of the 2020-2021 season against the U.S. Coast Guard Academy and the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. And get this, it was all virtual. According to the Montclairion, the meet took place in 3 different states, and there were no team points that were given. Neither was diving was scored neither. So I guess it took a lot of the pressure off the teams. But this goes down in MSU history as the first virtually held swim meet. So go Red Hawks, and they're looking to hopefully swim again. So according to their coach, so good luck, ladies. Next up, just to kind of lighten the mood, because it's a little bit of a downer because of the pandemic and the retightening and the reshutting down. The ever so beloved Christmas tree that we love to look at every year went up in Rockefeller Center this past Saturday. According to USA Today, the tree was donated by Al Dick of Daddy Al's General Store and will be decorated in lights that are about 5 miles long and will be set to illuminate on December 2nd at 7 p.m. Although there will be no in-person gathering this year because of the pandemic and because of social distancing, you will be able to watch it on TV and online. So if you're into that, you can go check that out. And finally, in travel news, a survey taken by Americans showed that fewer people are looking to travel this holiday season because of COVID and the recent restrictions. A majority of Americans actually say they're more scared of catching COVID on the airplane as opposed to their destination or the other airline. It's also looking like this holiday season may take a major hit with business travel as well as leisure travel. So that's definitely something to look into if you are still planning on traveling this holiday season. But that is all I have for your News Morning Update. This is Jaslyn, calling from WMSC 90.3 Upper Montclair, and I'm signing off.
Thank you so much, Jaslyn. And then we're gonna go right to our sports contributor, Matt. What do you got for us today?
Good
in the world
morning.
of sports?
I'm the lead singer of Coldplay, as far as you know. Dun dun
No. We know who Chris Martin is, dude.
Everyone is Chris Martin.
You don't know my name?
Rotate a little bit. You gotta rotate.
My name's Chris.
You could be the guitarist.
You could be the guitarist.
I'm the guitarist, as far as you know.
Look, this is how you gotta work with Coldplay. You gotta be
It's
someone
Chris Martin and the rest.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta make the money, but no one knows you, so you don't get mobbed in public.
What a sweet gig.
The Minnesota Vikings last night traveled to Chicago to take on the Bears. The game started with a turnover from each team. Then the Vikings broke the ice when Kirk Cousins threw a touchdown to Adam Thielen. The Bears followed that with a 23-yard field goal by Carlos Santos. Just before halftime, Carlos stayed cool, calm, and collected, drilling another field goal to bring the Bears within one. The third quarter opened up with a bang. Cordell Patterson takes a 104-yard field kickoff to the house for the Bears and ties record for most kickoff touchdowns in NFL history. The Vikings traveled by 6, and that turned to 3, which turned to be tied when Dan Bailey kicked a 37-yard field goal and then a 43-yarder a couple drives later. The fourth quarter started. Bears 13, Vikings 13. But that changed when Adam Thielen of the Vikings got his second touchdown of the night to make it 19-13, which usually would turn to 20, but the Vikings pulled out a trick play. They went for the fake field goal. No good. That opened the opportunity for the Bears. Clock was ticking. Needed a touchdown to tie the game and for a chance to win, but they never got it. They couldn't convert anywhere. The Bears fell to 5-5, and the Vikings improved to 4-5. Next Monday night, the NFL will be using an all-black officiating crew for the first time ever. Love to see that. The NCAA are moving the annual March Madness men's tournament to a single location in March, which would enhance the safety and well-being of the event due to COVID-19. The decision for the women's tournament has yet to be made. That is all for sports. I'll have to send it to you, Philippe, in the studio.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thanks for that sports update. In terms of weather, right now here in Montclair, it is 41 degrees. We got some light showers. We got a high of 46, low of 28. And it looks like for most of the day, it'll either be raining or cloudy. What about you, Tara, over there in Happy Valley?
About the same, 39 degrees now, going up to 47 and down to 29. 65% chance of rain through the morning. It's just going to be, it looks like it's going to be kind of cruddy.
Yeah. I will say, though, it is a lot better than how it was the past couple days because it was rough the past couple days.
Oh, yeah. I was fully not prepared.
No, not at all. But we can talk about that as NorthJersey.com put out an article covering the kind of weather we had these past few days, with an article titled "Storm Wreaks Havoc in North Jersey, Closing Roads and Knocking Out Power." Strong wind gusts swept through North Jersey on Sunday night, downing trees and power lines, leaving 2,000 people with no electricity. Fierce winds accompanied by severe thunderstorms in the area were enough to prompt a tornado warning from the National Weather Service for the southeastern part of Berrien County. The wind gusts peaked at 62 miles per hour in Vernon Township, 49 in Lyndhurst, and 45 in Hawthorne, reported North Jersey weather observers. There are no confirmed tornadoes in New Jersey, says James Connolly, meteorologist with the National Weather Service. The severe weather may have sneaked up on some residents, but the Weather Service released periodic advisories on the worsening weather.
Okay, so don't come for me, NorthJersey.com. I was one of those residents that it snuck up on. I was fully not ready for that weather system. Like just I was inside or whatever because that's all I do now, and no. I went for a drive that day. I went for a drive and I was like, it's getting kind of cloudy, kind of like looks like something's gonna happen. And then I got home, and then within like an hour of me being home, I was like battening down the hatches. I had to shut all the windows and stuff. Like it was wild.
We had to go outside and get our folding table. You know the folding table we have in our backyard?
Yeah.
It was fully in the garden, upside down. We don't know. Obviously, it was the wind, but we don't know exactly how. We had to like take it out. We had to close it, and we put it between the two benches that we have outside. But like, you hear like the wind outside, and
Right.
there's my house is right next to the apartment that's literally on the next side. And there's a tiny little alleyway. So the wind gets funneled there, kind of like it gets funneled up on top of the hill here on campus. And you just hear the wind howling the entire time. You hear pinging and the rain coming down.
It is. You see the rain going like sideways.
Yeah. Yeah. The rain starts going sideways and smacking you in the face, even if you're outside with, an umbrella or anything like that. It was crazy. It's Connolly himself had said, quote, "It's November, so people may not expect severe thunderstorms and be a little surprised," end quote. There was a down pole on a section of Route 120 in East Rutherford that caused all lanes on both sides of the highway to be closed. The Department of Transportation said traffic was detoured until 4:30 p.m. when the southbound lanes were reopened, but northbound lanes remained blocked. Deputy Chief Phil Taramina of the East Rutherford Police Department said. There were power outages in some of the counties here up north. There were 9 power outages in Bergen, 10 in Morris, 9 in Passaic, 46 in Essex, and 17 in Sussex. And this info is based on information I got at 10 p.m. Monday from PSE&G, JCP&L, and Orange and Rockland Utilities. Look, we're used to this kind of stuff closer in terms of, say, the summer. Because summer is the big time you get the heavy thunderstorms. Everyone expects
Right.
a
As like
summer
heat
thunderstorm.
waves meet colder air, like
Exactly.
the weather gets real crazy.
Yeah, for those of you who may not be as versed in meteorology as others, that's the big thing that causes storms. When you have two weather systems of two different temperatures meet, you get a lot of nonsense coming up. You get high
I'm
pressure
not
versus low
versed in
pressure.
meteorology. That's just growing up in New Jersey.
Well, New Jersey, you grow up in New Jersey, you're born. It's like,
Pretty much.
all right, here's your name. Put your foot down and your hands down on here. Here's your certification meteorology.
Yeah,
There you
because like
go.
nothing surprises, like it shouldn't be a surprise because like this is the state where we get lightning snow. So like
We get
anything is fair game in this state.
we get just, I think the is there any, I don't think we get, and even then we've gotten hurricanes, because I was gonna ask, is there any weather system that we normally don't get? 'Cause we get hail.
Tornadoes, I guess, are not the most common, but like
Even then
we're
we
on
still get
tornado
them.
watch. Yeah.
Yeah, even then,
There's a
like
first time for everything, I
a
guess.
typhoon. I don't think
Mhm.
we've gotten a typhoon. But that's generally more the Indian Ocean and the South Pacific that gets those. So it's not a situation of having the opportunity to do so, but a situation of we're in the wrong ocean to get that kind of stuff going on. So weather in New Jersey can get a little crazy, and obviously, there were power outages, and they did their best to get it. We didn't lose power at my house, thankfully.
Same here.
Just kind of had to try to sleep with the wind howling at the door. It's like when you have an annoying neighbor that plays music way too loud at way too late at night, or
Except
some
the music is just like white noise and static.
and knocking over garbage cans and stools and tables and sending stuff flying.
God, it was so many like broken tree branches.
Mhm.
Like it
And
looked like people were like, it looked like someone went out there with an axe and just went nuts.
yeah, and our fact checker Issa just dropped in the chat that late August through mid-November is the Atlantic hurricane season that affects New Jersey the most.
So it's
So,
still fair game. We're
yeah,
still fair game.
in Florida, they recently have been dealing with some storms because it is hurricane season. So this has been really the remnants of the kind of stuff that they've been dealing down there, but they get hit with the brunt of it after it goes through the Caribbean. So look, at the end of the day, it seems very much that people are okay. People may have lost power. The worst that it sounds like was the power loss by a small amount of individuals comparatively to some storms, as well as the closure of that section of Route 120, which, good lord, you got to feel for the people that were stuck with all lanes north and southbound closed completely. That's not fun.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
Yeah, no. I do not envy those people.
But
Especially in bad weather. Like you're not, you can't even like drop the windows or anything and you're stuck and
oh yeah, you dropped
hunkered down while it's storming and you're not getting any closer to home.
I'm stuck in traffic. Let me open the window and get drenched.
Yeah. Hang on, let me get some air.
Yeah, you'll get air. You'll get much more than air. But
Yeah.
people thankfully no one was hurt. People were just inconvenienced. But
Yeah.
what do we got today, Tara? We got
So
something.
this next story, I digress. I was not really familiar with, because I don't keep tabs on the comings and goings of Taylor Swift. It's not really my thing.
You don't listen to her.
I'm a reptile lover, but I don't follow them. Like I don't keep that close tabs on them. But this is interesting to me because it touches on a lot of stuff that goes way past her, right? Like it's almost not even about her at this point. But what's happening is Scooter Braun is selling Taylor Swift's Big Machine Masters for a big payday. So this is coming from Variety.com.
Now,
and
I want to say before we jump in the article, she put up a post kind of explaining the situation. So, and these are her words. So everything's quoted. Quote, I wanted to check in and update you guys. As you know, this was posted last night. For the past year, I've been actively trying to regain ownership of my master's recording. With that goal in mind, my team attempted to enter negotiations with Scooter Braun, who at the time is he's of Ithaca Holdings LLC. He is it's always Scooter Braun.
He's a manager. He was her manager.
Google lists him as an American entrepreneur.
Yeah, okay. Again, reptile.
Yeah.
But
as we goes on, she says Scooter's team wanted me to sign an ironclad non-disclosure agreement stating I would never say another word about Scooter Braun unless it was positive before we could even look at the financial records of Big Machine labeled. Let me look these.
Big Machine is the label she was on.
Yes. Which is always the first step in a purchase of this nature. So I would have to sign a document that would silence me forever before I could even have a chance to bid on my own work. Mind you, bid. My legal team said that this is absolutely not normal, and they've never seen an NDA like this presented unless it was to silence an assault accuser by praying them off, which she put the awkward smile emoji. There, she threw in a couple of emojis. He would never even quote my team a price. These master recordings were not for sale to me. It was to her team. A few weeks ago, my team received a letter from a private equity company called Shamrock Holdings, letting us know that they had bought 100% of my music, videos, and album art from Scooter Braun. This is the second time my music had been sold without my knowledge. The letter told me that they wanted to reach out before the sale to let me know, but that Scooter Braun had required that they made no contact with me or my team, or the deal would be off. As soon as we started communication with Shamrock, I learned that under their terms, Scooter Braun will continue to profit off my old music catalog for many years. I was hopeful and open to the possibility of a partnership with Shamrock, but Scooter's participation is a non-starter for me. I've recently begun re-recording my older music and has already proven to be both exciting and creatively fulfilling. I have plenty of surprises in store. I want to thank you guys for supporting me through this ongoing saga, and I can't wait for you to hear what we're doing up. I love you guys. I'm going to keep cruising, as they say. Taylor, P.S. For transparency and clarification, I have included a letter of response I sent on October 28th, 2020 to the private equity group to purchase my music.
All right, so we got to break this down because that's a lot of information at one time. We got to break this down, right? So Scooter Braun is not her manager. He is a manager. What happened was Taylor Swift started her career on a label called Big Machine Records.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're at. Okay. So a lot of her early stuff, the stuff that put her on the map, first couple records, like a lot of the stuff that you think of when you think Taylor Swift is on Big Machine Records, right? Mm-hmm. So what's happening is this dude who wasn't even her manager, right?
He was the manager of Justin Bieber previously, and he treated Selena Gomez pretty poorly, who was a very close friend of Taylor Swift. Our wonderful manager, because we have a great manager that doesn't do underhanded things to us. Annabella has informed, she keeps tabs on this because it's something that she working in the radio industry, something that she was very familiar with. Taylor's management has always been in-house in terms of people close to her, people she can trust, which is smart.
So he didn't manage her, but he's in the business, right? And he has this thing called Ithaca Holdings, which is like his LLC, and where he, does his work through. And what's happening is
17 months ago, Ithaca Holdings acquired Big Machine Label Group,
which is the label that Taylor Swift's early stuff was on.
And now they're selling it.
Okay.
So it was bought. So Ithaca Big Machine record label was founded by Scott Borchetta in 2005, and in June 2018 for just over $300 million.
Small thing like $300 million.
And $140 million of that $300 million is just Taylor Swift's catalog. The acquisition encompassed all aspects of Big Machine Label Group's business, including its client roster, distribution deals, publishing, and owned artist masters. Swift signed with BMLG at the beginning of her career. Her contract with the label expired in fall 2018, after which she signed a deal for future recordings with Universal Music Group. All right. And it turns out the sale will net at somewhere above $300 million. And some insiders speculate, according to Variety, that the value could be as high as $450 million once certain earnbacks are factored in.
So this is where this is going to be tough, right? This is going to be
complicated.
It is complicated, but this is where it's going to be a tough sell for her, right? Because when you sign yourself to a record label,
Mhm.
this is what you do. You know, you end up signing the rights to XYZ albums and all the things associated with those albums over to the label. That's in theory what the exchange is. The exchange is you give them the rights to your stuff so they can make money, and in exchange, they will put you on and get you recorded and get you on the road and get you and you know, send your stuff to radio and all that. That's supposed to be what the exchange is, and that's until the internet basically was the way that the music industry worked, which is
Mhm.
why labels had like an iron grip on artists, and they really don't anymore. But what's happening here is she signed with Big Machine early on, and now Big Machine is getting bought out by Scooter Braun.
Well,
Or
was
her
bought out.
parts of Big Machine are getting bought out by Scooter
No,
Braun.
he
She
Yeah.
bought
doesn't like that.
everything. He bought everything.
He bought
bought
the
the whole
whole
thing.
label.
The whole
Yeah.
thing, which included all of Swift's work.
But I'm guessing she made a bulk of the profit for the label in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is look.
It's
It
Taylor
doesn't-
Swift and then the other people on Big
It,
Machine
it,
Records.
it doesn't matter if you're a Taylor Swift fan
Or not.
Swiftie or not. This woman has been a big name in the industry. She's made a
For
ton of money in the
years.
industry. She's made a ton of people a ton of money. So you're buying what is quite in essence a cash cow. You sold it for profit, and you're still going to be receiving revenue over time due to it.
Oh wow.
Like
And
you
I
are
know
set
how
for money at this point.
and I
That's
know
the
how
thing.
touchy she is about her masters and stuff, because for years
As you should be.
she didn't even want like streaming services like having her music for the longest. So I know how she feels about like owning your masters, profiting off of your own music.
Right.
And she's been through a lot these past couple of years. So this is just another added like stress.
She
Right,
had
like,
originally
listen.
bought. Oh, before you go, Tara, because Annabella is giving us more info. She originally signed knowing she could buy her masters when the deadline for their ownership took place. So there was an assumption beforehand that she could actually get these back. But you were gonna say, Tara. I'm sorry.
I just like, and I'm not a fan, right? I don't like her the way she operates, but this is more
Bigger.
about like, this is an artist, right?
Like principle.
Right. This is an artist who is a millionaire,
Yeah.
right? And they have all the resources and all the money you could ask for, and they're still having trouble securing the rights to their own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What's scary about that is not her. It's not her. It's not what happens to her. What's scary about that is what about the other artists that are just starting out, that are just getting signed, that are, you know, don't have
This gives
chart-topping hits and
Taylor
millions of dollars
Swift,
to
yeah,
to
swag.
defend themselves
this
and
gives,
hold up for, and you know, hold themselves up, who don't have, you know, this kind of stupid money that she has.
by the way, Taylor Swift is apparently worth $360
$360
million
million.
just her alone. This
Like,
this
that's
gives
what the thing
Motown
is.
vibes.
And this
This
is
It really
why,
does.
like
yeah, and
olden
this
days
is why
of
you
Motown.
got to be careful as an artist when you sign stuff.
Gotta read.
Yeah.
Like, just what, and like, if you can allot some of the money for an attorney, you should do that.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
this is the type of stuff that comes back to haunt you. Because if you have success, if you have any kind of success later on, let alone Taylor Swift level of success, people are going to want to get their hands on that and claim it. And that's exactly what's happening here.
So
And-
So
yeah.
don't sign it. Don't sign 360s.
mm-mm.
You hear a lot of hip hop people talk about 360 deals because that's kind of prevalent right now. Is there's a lot of people signing 360 deals. A 360 deal basically means the label gets the rights to all your stuff,
Yeah.
and in exchange they're going to promote you. This is the type of stuff that makes people think that record labels might not even be necessary anymore.
And you see, like, look at TLC, right? I don't know if anybody else
Yeah.
is familiar with. I mean, you should be. I shouldn't even said that.
But
But TLC. Okay, I was getting down with you. Okay, so
Yeah.
TLC, like when they won their Grammy, I think it was, like they announced that they were broke. And it's
Mhm.
like sometimes you think like, and as somebody who does want to work in the music industry one day, you know, on the business side of things, or hopes to, like, I want people to understand, like, reading your contract is so important. And if there's anything you don't understand, make sure you understand it, because then you get stuck. Like, this is Taylor Swift. She's a, like you, like the both of Tara and Philippe said, if you like her, you don't like her, there's some things that are just objective. She has taken the world by storm since she was a teenager. Like all of us were in math class drooling at 15, 16. Like sis was writing her own music chart.
We're out there struggling
Romeo
to
and
do
Juliet. That's that song, Romeo and
reading
Juliet.
Hamlet.
Like,
teardrops on her guitar and stuff.
Like she's like iconic. You know, some things are just objective, and she's sitting here like she's been through lawsuit after lawsuit in the past couple of years. So my heart goes out to her, and I know how seriously she takes her music. So for her to have to go through this, and like Philippe said, like something like her having an assumption, because even at that early age, she was smart. She signed knowing that under the assumption that she should get her money, she should be able to own her own stuff later on. Something like that. I don't know if she got it in writing or not, but if she did get it in writing,
So
it should be, if she didn't, I mean, it should be in writing somewhere in that contract. Like after this amount of years, after X amount of sales, whatever it is, she gets 100% total control of all her masters.
Also, like if somebody tries to rush you to sign something because they say the deal is only on the table for so long, it's probably because they don't want you to read it.
Yeah. So something important too is she's still going to be able to re-record her albums and her songs.
Can I respond to that?
Correct. Yeah. Not
correct.
Correct.
I like being correct. Thank you. But can I say something to that?
Yes.
That doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
It does. Like the hit's already out. It already happened.
The money.
Nobody's gonna rebuy Shake It Off. No. It already happened. It's
so
no, seriously. Like it made its money. It doesn't. She can
and we'll still be making its money.
That song was a reset.
Those songs, those songs and albums will continue bringing in revenue. That's the thing.
A
those
little
albums
bit,
are
not
no. The originals.
Shake It Off. Again.
I'm talking about the originals, not her re-recordings. The originals, like fans are gonna go for the originals no matter what. That's the thing. Those are the things that bring you in. A band re-records something. I don't know how fans. Her biggest fans will definitely be keen on going back and buying those albums. It's like, let me support her because she's going through all this. But like your average listener isn't going to stream the new version, isn't going to stream the re-recorded version. They're still going to go back to the originals.
Right. Like
we heard it already.
Yeah. Like I've heard YouTube creators say the bulk of the hits on the video happen in the first day. Who cares if you put another one out? It's already done. It happened. The money was made. The hits were gotten. So her saying she's going to go back and re-record it, like I get why to have it that you could own it going forward, but like that's not going to undo somebody buying the original out from under you.
There's an interesting paragraph in this article, and then I'll cover this and we'll talk about this NDA that they wanted her to sign. But in obviously we talked about the fact that she obviously wanted to talk. She obviously said that she's eligible for re-recording the albums and songs after a certain point at the end of each album cycle. In August 2019, she publicly said she was going to do that. But the article, the paragraph goes, what does that mean for assets sold by Braun? Master recordings earn revenue through multiple avenues, including streaming and consumption, sampling, public broadcast, use in television, film, and commercials. They've also become a hot property on Wall Street as funds like Mercuriadis's Hypnosis songs have snapped up catalogs from the likes of Timbaland and Eurythmics' Dave Stewart to Jack Antonoff and Jeff Bhasker. Between March 2019 and March 2020, the company spent nearly $700 million to acquire 42 catalogs. As recently as last week, Hypnosis purchased a 50% stake in Rick James' catalog across both publisher and writer shares, and an additional 50% stake of his recorded music masters. James' Super Freak is one of the most referenced and sampled riffs in modern music. Publishing assets are currently running at multiples well over 12, with master rights slightly lower but increasing in value. It says one insider privy to
once you're done, let me translate this.
End quote. In 5 to 10 years, 10 years, it might be 20 times the value. 20 times the value continues to rise. End quote. While this investor advises against selling intellectual property right now for this very reason, others are eyeing an incoming Biden administration as reason to divest of such property, anticipating a major change to capital gains taxes come 2021.
Right. So that's to translate that. Basically, people are doing this with all different artists' masters because they do keep generating money. Like that's, anytime a song gets used in a commercial, it generates money. Anytime a song gets sampled or you hear somebody else use the hook in a different song, that song makes money. Anytime, the album sells after the fact, physical copies, digital copies, it makes money. So these are assets that people fight over because they're like, they're a constant revenue stream that somebody else did the work for, essentially. So people fight over these all the time. And, even though it's not the initial spike, they still generate money, and that's why people like Scooter Braun do this type of stuff where they try to snatch up the rights to stuff, even if, and because they want to make, they
It's
want a
like-
hand in that profit that keeps trickling in,
It's- It's this weird thing. It's almost like flipping a house, except you somehow still make money off the house after you flip it.
Pretty much.
Um,
I mean, this is why like people don't want to sign with labels anymore.
Also, let's consider this first of all the NDA, how notorious non-disclosure agreements are to begin with.
Yeah,
And secondly-
just so you don't, a non-disclosure agreement is exactly what it sounds like. It's a document that you sign that basically says you're not going to talk about X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
They're
And also-
they're insidious.
Yeah, and a lot of stars use them. Like there's rumors of, if you're around Beyonce, you can't you have to sign an NDA because she said it in a song. It was like a joke. Like if you want to hang with the queen, you got to sign a non-disclosure. But they actually don't hold up in court. I found this out recently. So they're mainly just like a paper trail to say, hey, we told you not to talk about this, and it's like a scare tactic, pretty
Pretty
much.
much.
Yeah.
I mean, they hold up in like the business that they're in. They hold up in
Yeah.
like a company if like they say don't break this or we'll fire you. If you break it, they can fire you, but you can't
Yeah.
go to jail for it, basically.
Pretty much.
like,
Exactly.
and the biggest thing is that they wouldn't quote her a price until she signed the NDA, which is a big problem right there and then, because basically you sign the NDA. What happens, and a big one too, these NDAs tend to be used to silence people when anything controversial comes, like she mentioned, the victims of assault. These
When
kinds of
The thing
NDAs,
with Kesha broke. A lot of what Dr. Luke and the people that, and I have to say allegedly assaulted her, a lot of the stuff they used to try to shut her up was the non-disclosures in her contracts, and saying that she shouldn't be talking about stuff like this.
Mhm.
So they're insidious. They really are.
So what non-disclosure agreements are meant to do, it's meant in this information we're getting from fact checker E says they're supposed to be an important legal framework used to protect sensitive and confidential information. So the video game industry, for example, they sign a lot of NDAs just in terms of development of a game, because you can spoil so much information from what a game's going to have.
Right. Like you don't ideally what this would be like, you don't want somebody who's developing a hit video game going out to the middle of the street and being like, hey, this is what happens in the beginning, the middle, and end. So I'm going to tell you everything. Like,
Or if
right,
you're
like-
trying to develop a brand new product, you don't want to leak that information, or you don't want someone to come in who may be at some point influenced by an outside force to leak, something. But generally what happens with these is they're used for some pretty horrible things. You want to keep them from being used for, if a tech company is working on a brand new process or something like that, you don't want a competitor to steal it from you by paying off someone that works for you, because even if you fire that person, the information is
It's already out there.
You have NDAs for different movies and films and other media companies where you don't want the information to come out, things spoiled for a movie coming up. Like I can't imagine the kinds of NDAs that were signed for the last two Avengers movies. Those must have been
The
ridiculous.
Tom Holland broke all of probably.
Yeah,
But-
like
And
But-
like I
and-
remember
that's why they don't
just-
tell him stuff anymore.
they keep him out of the group text. And I remember a couple years ago, I was doing a lot of reporting on Drag Race, like when I went on, I was working with Larry Flick and stuff on Sirius, and I came into contact with NDAs all the time because not me personally, but a lot of the people on those shows, like on the reality TV shows, have to sign stuff like that, like a lot. So you hear people that don't talk about, not just that don't talk about what happened on the show, but don't talk about what happens on set. That's why there's a short list of drag queens from Drag Race who will actually talk about what happens on the set, because either they were smart enough not to sign one of these things or they don't care. So
They tend to have more clout.
Also, yeah.
These people that are usually able to, either they do it because they there is a right to do these things. There's some NDAs that are broken because there are actual issues going on that need to be spoken of. There are NDAs that people are like, I signed this, I'll deal with the legal consequences because I can afford to deal with these legal issues right now. Some people have money and they can deal with that, but it's scary and it's crazy the fact that an artist on the level of Taylor Swift has to deal with this. And let's not even get into the gender dynamics of a man in power trying to put a woman down. She wrote the song The Man, really focusing on this whole thing where you have a person like Scooter Braun who is leveraging all the power and assets he has to first try and silence one of his critics to begin with, saying like, I'll give you what you want if you shut up about me for an indefinite period of time, but first you have to agree to do it before I even consider selling it to you. Secondly, the fact that he then just kind of, all right, you don't want to do what I want you to do, so I'm just gonna take my ball and go home, type of thing. When you're playing with a kid and they don't like the way they don't like the game isn't being played by their rules, they pick up the ball and they leave and they go play with someone else. Like
Mhm.
it really comes down to some insane gender power dynamics, and the fact that an artist at the stature of Taylor Swift has to deal with this. And like you said at the very beginning of this conversation, that is a very scary thing to think about it when you start going down the ladder. Because
Yep.
this is the opposite of trickle down economics. This is literally you have a bucket of water and you're flooding the entire house from the bottom up.
Right. It's scary as an artist, and you see a lot of stories like this. You see stuff like happen with this, stuff like what happened with Kesha, where when she was allegedly assaulted by a member of her production team, the label wanted to start silencing her using things like NDAs that were in her contracts and stuff. But and then you see that too a couple of years ago, the story broke about speaking of Universal, the Universal Music Fire, where so many master tapes were lost because Universal was storing them all in the same place and the building burned. Like there's so many artists from every genre you can think of, like from modern pop to like classics
Mhm.
of every genre. There was music lost in the, like, just if you ever want to learn more about, just look Universal Music Fire, put it into Google, watch.
Mhm.
It's terrifying. And I know like this isn't a blanket statement, but there's a reason why now more than ever artists are focusing on self-promotion, not just with the internet, but with just on their own hustle. Like there's a reason why they're doing that, and there's a reason why that's made a resurgence, because people don't want to be put in a situation where somebody else has the final say in your life, in your career, in your music. And that's, in a lot of cases, that's what the label is, especially if you don't read it.
Mhm. You need more people that are either artists and have been in that situation to run record labels, or you need people who are not, control freaks and sit there. Like, I understand at the end of the day, it is a profit driven industry. Like there's no if and or about it. It's a profit driven industry. You got to make money. I get it. But you can't do it at the cost of other people.
Right.
I feel like I feel like that's a fair statement to say that any industry shouldn't make money off the cost of other humans, and yet, we see it happen all the time. But we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're gonna play a quick little song, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about uh, San Francisco and its connection to Tulsa,
Yeah.
Oklahoma. We'll be right
I'm
back.
not trying to put a blanket statement on labels, by the way, but just read what you sign.
Exactly.
There's
We'll
good
be right.
advice in life too. Read
We'll
before
be
you sign.
we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Morning Buzz. I almost called it my own show.
I did that in the beginning too.
But welcome back. The song you just heard a clip of, if you were listening on either iHeartRadio, 90.3, WMC.com, or just on the airwaves, was Subterranean by the Foo Fighters. If you are on Facebook or on YouTube, unfortunately, you just heard silence and me bobbing my head back and forth as I jammed to it. I hope you enjoyed that at least. However, Tara, I got a question. If you were paid 10 grand to leave New Jersey, would you?
You need to give me more information.
To Tulsa,
Where am I
Oklahoma.
going?
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Never.
Well, this article from SF Gate, which I assume is San Francisco Gate, because it is a story about San Francisco, goes Bay Area applicants flood program that pays them 10 grand to leave California. I remember we started talking about it and realized we were both of two different opinions of it. So I feel like we're gonna have some back and forth on this. But quote, "Hi, remote workers. We'll pay you to work from Tulsa. You're going to love it here," end quote, reads the welcome message from Tulsa Remote. The program, started by the George Kaiser Family Foundation, is paying people $10,000 to move to Tulsa, Oklahoma to work remotely, and a surge of applicants are not coming from the Bay Area. Quote, "We've had over 1,000 applicants just in the last 2 weeks alone. Over half of them are from California, many from the Bay Area. It's been a wild time for us," Grant Baumgartner, the program's community manager, told News on 6. Even before the pandemic, there was a slowing population in Oklahoma, largely due to the downturn in the energy sector. Quote, "The last few years have been the slowest population growth since the late 80s, early 90s," end quote. Chad Wilkerson of the Kansas City Fed's Oklahoma City branch office told Bloomberg when the program was launched in 2008. Tulsa Remote is designed to put the small city on the map and give it a jolt of energy and diversity. The major shift to remote work after the COVID-19 pandemic has led to an unprecedented spike in interest in the program from, quote, "digital nomads," end quote, as the site calls them. Quote, "Tulsa Remote is back and bigger for 2020. We're looking for 250 more remote workers," end quote, the program states. So this is interesting. Something people need to keep in mind too is, I think one of the biggest appeals is just cost of living. The average, for example, despite the recent rental drop, the current rate for a 2-bedroom apartment in San Francisco is still just shy of $4,000 a month. In Tulsa, it's around $800 a month. So you have to stay within the city limits of Tulsa, for example. The rules state that it does not include areas like Bixby, Broken Arrow, Sand Springs, Sapulpa, or Jenks. The last two are interesting names. The money is paid out to you over the course of the first year in the city. Some money is given up front to help with relocation expenses, followed by a monthly stipend to keep things moving. The opportunity also offers a free desk space at a co-working hub in downtown Tulsa, which allows you to get work, quote, "provides a place to get work done and collaborate with other local entrepreneurs, remote workers, and digital nomads." So this is interesting. You need to be a remote worker or self-employed, by the way. This is interesting. I think, at least personally, the idea of using these funds to try and kickstart the local economy is on paper good. Obviously, these kind of programs can get a little dicey sometimes. I think on paper, this is a great idea in terms of not only getting more people to come move in and give them opportunity, but also to increase the diversity of an area, make it, different, and really try to feed, they were talking about how since the 80s and 90s, since the energy sector was on a downturn, the population growth in the city has been stagnant because of that. People aren't coming in, because who's going to Tulsa, Oklahoma to go work if there are no interesting and enticing jobs when you're being paid 10 grand over the course of a year to come in and live?
I have opinions.
And I'd like to hear them, because
the Tara Cicchetti story.
I have questions.
What's up?
Go ahead, Tara.
Yeah.
You want me to go first, or you want to go first?
No, I just want to know, I just want to clarify. So they're being paid to live and work in Tulsa, or they already have to have a remote job somewhere else and then move to Tulsa?
Yeah. So they need to either be self-employed or have a remote job to begin with. and then
Okay.
they can qualify to move to Tulsa.
Right.
Money up front to help with the move, and then
Mhm.
paid every month a stipend while also working and having income.
All right. So let
Okay.
me break down where I'm at with this, right?
Mhm.
Number one, as a queer person and as someone who deals with a lot of medical issues separate from that, moving away from the coast of the United States is not really an option for me. Number two, what I'm hearing, what I hear this as is, first off, that citation about, oh, since the 80s and 90s the energy sector isn't what it used to be. That's not a failure on the part of people. That's a failure on the part of policymakers for not understanding that energy needs are changing and you need to start switching to different sources of energy instead of just telling the same people that their jobs will still be there when they won't.
Clean coal, as we've been told before.
Right. Like, this is not, this sounds like they're like, oh, well, people just randomly aren't going here. Like, no, there's a reason, and it's a fixable reason. Number three, this doesn't sound like you're not bringing work to Tulsa. You are bringing people who work to Tulsa.
Mhm.
You're buying people to do their jobs, and hopefully spend their money in the area, which to a degree they will. They have to eat, they have to live, but you're not bringing work to the city. You're not making work for the people that live there already. You're not, that's the biggest thing for me. You're not making new jobs for the city of Tulsa. You are bringing people in to live there who already work for a company somewhere else, and then hoping that because they're in the vicinity that their money gets spread around in your city.
And-
In your residents see no part of that.
And this is why it's on paper that it sounds good, because the more you start digging into this, the more caveats you start to see, the more nuance that you start to see in it, because it certainly comes as a good idea, and people sit there and think, oh yeah, this is great. There are people that could, and there will be people that benefit from this program, no doubt about it. The problem is you need to see what the benefits are in the long run as a whole, as opposed to just kind of look at it as like a flat across the board, like this is good across the board. It's like, no, there's a lot of things that go into this, and you really need to read into it and understand what exactly is going on. And the economy doesn't work as in people work, people put money into it, and everything's all
It's
good.
a whole thing.
It is a process, it is a
Yeah.
system that may or may not be fair sometimes. So you need to really look into this, and I feel like this was a great article to read, because it's ironic too that I'm going to say that it kind of paints it in rose colored glasses, because the color scheme of this art of this website is white with a little bit of rose on it, but it is
But
a
I'm
little bit
trying.
of rose colored glasses in the terms of, yeah, there will be people that benefit this, but it is already limited to people who are remote workers or self-employed. You are limited to the area of Tulsa and within the city limits, and the fact that you have to find a job there, and how much of that money is actually going to go back to the city. So you make
But
some
if you're a remote
fantastic
worker
points.
from the Bay Area, your job is in the Bay Area.
That's why I was confused, because Tara, you actually made it clear to me, because I'm like, you're not really, first of all, if you have 10 grand to give strangers to come move to your city, you have 10 grand to start programs to help the people that live there. Number
Thank
two,
you.
read up on the history of Tulsa, Oklahoma, by the way. That city is very, very historical. That's all I'm gonna say. If you would like, what I'm saying, I feel like it's a very interesting read. Number three, you're not, like Tara said, the most that people are probably going to do is pay your rent with your own money, and pay maybe bills, and you like, if somebody's year
and for
is
like
up,
food.
exactly, like if your year is up, who's to say they're gonna stay there? That's another thing too. Like, you have to think long term. Like, okay, the 10 grand is up. They've supplemented their own income. Who's to say, like, yeah, I don't really like Oklahoma. There's just grass and wind,
I like to play
dust bowls.
Oklahoma.
Like, I miss San Francisco and the diversity and the water. Like I haven't seen water in a year.
The
So, like I haven't seen the ocean in a year. So I want to go
I
back.
laugh, but that's such a legitimate thing where I couldn't imagine it being landlocked.
Right. And like your job, but like you said it, like your job is in the Bay Area. It's not in Oklahoma. You're not bringing commerce and money to
Exactly.
Oklahoma. You're still working in the Bay Area.
Like if they had remote work in Oklahoma, then this whole thing would make a little bit more sense. It still would be bad because you're trying to recruit people from another area to come and try and make your city survive. Meanwhile, people in Tulsa are like,
It's
What about
like,
us?
It's
I don't-
interesting. It's interesting too because this program started before the pandemic, so this isn't just a response to the current pandemic. But Tulsa Remote has been a
Here,
program
it's
that's
just
been
doing
around since
whatever.
2018. So, but it's just it you want to give it the most amount. You want to give it the benefit of doubt. And you want to give it the most credit for it to
Nah, this is a
survive.
stupid idea.
But you read into it, and it's just
This is a
there's-
terrible idea.
there's so many other things. However, what is a good idea?
IMO.
What is a great idea? I think you could tell us, Tara. What is the best thing you could do with beer bottles?
Throw them at your neighbor. No, don't do that. The best here's a good one. Here's a good idea for one. House of Beer. This is from thefirstnews.com. Fishing fan builds lakeside eco house from recycled booze bottles. Booze bottles. You could have just said beer bottles. They're not. They're
Well, they apparently use wine bottles as well.
Oh, yeah, I guess. An eco-minded fishing fanatic has built a lakeside home for fishermen constructed almost entirely from empty bottles of beer and wine. Restaurant owner. That's a name.
That's a very Polish name.
I'm sorry, dude. I can't.
Gregor
Gr-
Szabinski.
Grzegorz.
The Z's are not necessarily pronounced in certain aspects in Polish.
I'm gonna use your initials because I
GS.
don't want to botch your name that hard. And that's my fault. I'm sorry. Restaurant owner GS from Jaslow in
Podkarpis.
Thank you. Decided to give a new lease on life to his customers' empty bottles by building a bizarre glass house on the edge of a lake commonly used by local fishermen. The 4x5 meter building has a fully functional bathroom, kitchen, bedroom, and dining room, the walls of which are all lined with rows of recycled glass bottles. We decided to, this is a quote from GS, we decided to give the bottles a fresh start while also promoting the environment. Glass is a material that has been known to man for 45,000 years, yet we rarely...
4,500 years.
Okay, I was 1-0 off.
That is a big discrepancy,
It is a
Tara.
big- I could get with that discrepancy, though. If you want to do that in my bank account, you add an extra 0. I'm not going to argue.
Oh.
I could get with that. But what it said was glass is a material that has been known to man for 4,500 years. Yet we rarely take much notice of it nowadays. It's a pity. He added that the name of the house, Carp, was a no-brainer. This is dope, man.
This is cool. Yeah. Look, first of all, he built a house specifically for fishermen to stay in. You know, this is right next to a big popular fishing spot. Someone could just roll up. I don't know what's the exact what is the exact, like, you know, do you have to pay rent or anything like that? But it's there. It's usable. It's livable. It's a community effort too, because the residents were encouraged. Not only did he donate used bottles from his restaurant, the community members were encouraged to donate bottles as well, and they were encouraged to write messages on the bottles that they donated, which I imagine there were at least some people that wrote some very unscrupulous things.
Yeah, whatever. This is a cool idea.
It's like, you look at a picture of the house. I think, Tara, can you share your screen just to show what the house looks like?
Yeah.
Specifically the version of it that says Carp on the side. It's spelled out. It
Yeah.
is literally just bottles stacked on each other with cement in between.
Here you go.
So cool. Like, it's so smart that people sit there and do that kind of stuff. And hey, I need to recycle a bunch of bottles. You know, you'd hope, and Annabella pointed this out, hopefully not a place with a lot of thunderstorms and tornadoes, because, you know, God forbid a storm hits that. But
You up the creek with no paddle.
you're up
No boat.
the creek in the background with no paddle.
Yeah, this is not good. But if it's a fair weather area.
It's got electricity.
Look out,
It's
man.
got
This is cool.
That's
got working. Like,
Right?
I like that. Like that's like, your first year out of college, you don't have nowhere to live.
that's tiny
Build
homes.
yourself a bottle house.
Yeah, on we have the pictures up here on Facebook Live for people to look at, or later on when the video is uploaded on YouTube. But it reminds me of like the tiny, what do they call, the tiny homes movement here in the
Yeah,
U.S.
I was
that
gonna say
started a
the
while ago.
same thing. Yeah.
But this one's even better because it's not like gentrified tiny homes. It's a tiny home that's made through a community effort, and it's actually an eco-friendly way to deal with glass bottles instead of just trying to recycle them. And the results you get from that, it is amazing. And just calling it carp,
I
man.
love it.
You
It's so
had it. You
cool.
had me at eco-friendly use of bottles, but when you name a fisherman house
Carp.
carp,
You're up there.
like what
I'm
what
here for it.
more? What more can you say
You
to
see,
this?
I was concerned because I thought it was just glass, maybe like sheet wall or something.
Right.
And I was like,
no.
it's cute in theory, but it's like, the phrase like don't throw stones at a glass house. Like if somebody decided
Like
to
you
just be a
made the
jerk
glass house.
and like somebody wanted to be a jerk and just go, but it's pretty solid. So I like that.
Yeah,
It's cool.
pretty
It's a
solid,
cool
both
idea.
figuratively and literally, if we're gonna look at it. But look, we have to remember people can be very, people that joke with Bear Grylls, adapt,
Improvise, adapt, overcome.
and humans do that. I mean, humans
Yeah,
have done
that's
that
cool.
throughout their entire history, and we've gotten to living in the modern era because of the ways humans are they use their
Yeah.
ingenuity and intelligence.
But before we go,
Yeah.
Phil, do you want to light up this next story real quick?
Oh, Netherlands, please never change, please. So this story is something special, I want to say.
Hit it, and then pass it on.
Stop it. You stop it. This story comes from the website, pulling it up, DutchReview.com. And Dutch police raid a marijuana farm, but only find vegetables.
The
The police-
marijuana is in quotes, BT dubs.
Yeah, when police followed a lead to a supposed cannabis farm in Gielen, Limburg, they were flummoxed by what they discovered. No evidence of marijuana was found on the scene, but instead, buckets of chicory. They received an anonymous tip on Monday about the possibility of cannabis cultivation. It was thought to be linked to stolen electricity, as measurements in the area indicated the house in question may have tapped in illegally. When the officers arrived on the scene, they noticed a PVC pipe coming from the basement, giving them further cause for interest. When they approached the surprised residents, they were invited into the house without issue and allowed to poke around. Now, first of all, if you're the cops and you're investigating this, your first thought is, wait a minute, we're being let in. But yeah, they found literally just buckets of chicory.
That's so great.
Is a special sensation for the police. The police wrote on Facebook. It turns out the homeowner was a big fan of chicory and grew it as a hobby. So I think on that note, if you think your neighbor is growing something illicit, maybe they
Think
just like
twice.
vegetables. But thank you for tuning in to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. I have been Philippe. This has been Tara and Jaslyn. I want to thank, of course, our producer Amanda and our fact checker Isa and our sports contributor Matt as well. We hope everyone has a wonderful week. Stay safe and tune in again tomorrow at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. for another edition of the Morning Buzz, the Wednesday edition. But for now, I hope everyone has a great time and a great week. Stay safe, wear a mask, maybe two. And yeah, be smart.
Bye.